I know Mike Mike Hurst is on with us. Good morning, Mike. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Paul. Good morning, Perez.
I know you'd agree with this. We have some of the most beautiful hometowns. I'll never forget when we were touring the Northeast up in Newport and places like that on a visit. I thought, man, these hometowns are just beautiful. This was in the fall of the year. But you take a look at some of the ways that we decorate what we do, from Canton to Ocean Springs to Oxford to Cleveland to a lot of different places. And, man, we've got some great hometowns in this state. We really do.
Absolutely. Marion County, Lowndes County, Jones County.
Because we always leave out people.
That's right.
But you're right. You're absolutely right. I have one opening quick shot here that I wanted to mention. The Memphis teen, a teenager in Memphis, has got serious charges. He stole a Dodge Charger. And then he scammed another person out of the vehicle. Antonio Johnson, 19 years old, was booked in the Shelby County Jail on Friday of this week or last week. 2 counts of theft of property, altering a motor vehicle serial number, altering, falsifying, forging an auto title. This guy's 19 years old. You know he has some smarts if he would just use them the right way. Investigators said he stole a 2022 Dodge Charger Scat Pack. Now, the Scat Pack is SCAT Pack. This vehicle, this Dodge Charger, cost $84,000.
Jeez.
$84,000. Then it was reported stolen on October 10th. Then he posted the car on Facebook for sale on the marketplace. Man who saw the ad told police.
Right, Mike?
Thank God for stupid criminals.
The man who saw the ad told police that he met up with Johnson and agreed to trade his 2015 Camaro and give him $6,000 for the Charger with his Camaro. Victim said at the time he didn't know Johnson's real name, but said he signed over an Arkansas title with the name Antonio Johnson. So anyway, when the victim tried to register the Charger in Mississippi, he discovered the title was fake. After contacting Memphis police, found the car was stolen. Johnson was arrested after the victim reported his Camaro was also stolen. Police said they found the vehicle and Johnson at a home. They said Johnson admitted to trading the stolen Charger for the Camaro and cash. He will be in court a little bit later on this morning. That Scat Pack was $84,000.
Kids, if the deal is too good to be true, it probably is.
On both ends of the spectrum there. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Paul?
Good. Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Let's start it off by just going into this thing. You watched it, of course.
I did.
By the way, you did a good job.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm sure. Has ABC or Fox or anybody called since then? Or
No. The folks at American Greed were very kind to come down and document this case. They'd actually been contacting us quite a few times over the years to come down and do this, and we had just gotten to a point where the case is almost concluded. It's not quite concluded yet. Your listeners would probably be shocked to hear that. The case is actually still going on. There's still 4 Louisiana businessmen who are waiting to be sentenced by Judge Henry T. Wingate here in Jackson for bribes connected to Chris Epps. So the case is still going on, but American Greed said, look, we've got to go, and so we went.
When was this actually put in the can? I mean, when was it filmed? And it takes a long time from the first time somebody shows up.
I want to say it was filmed back in May, back in late spring, early summer. And so they came down to Jackson, filmed current U.S. Attorney Darren LaMarca, the FBI agents Ty Breelove, Molly Blythe, myself, and others while they were down here.
How long did they say? How long did it take them to do it?
It didn't take them that long. I think they were with me probably 3 hours.
That's it.
And so I know they were with the others for about a similar amount of time.
When you watched it, what did you think? Did they portray the events of the entire case the way you thought it was accurate?
Yeah, I thought they did a good job. I mean, they left out a number of individuals who were also involved. You know, this covered many more individuals than just the 4 or 5 that they listed. But there were others who were actually connected to the bribery scheme and convicted by our office in connection with it.
Were they just not candy, or they just weren't that attractive?
I don't know why the producers picked the ones they did. Obviously, the ones they did pick were very important to the case and very a big part of the case. But some of the other ones, like there was a consultant on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, Robert Simmons, that pled guilty to bribing Commissioner Epps. And Mr. Simmons was actually connected to a supervisor on the coast who we had indicted, and we were getting ready to arraign in the morning of arraignment of William Martin, a supervisor down in Harrison County. Unfortunately, he didn't show up for his arraignment that morning, and FBI agents went out to his house and found that he committed suicide. So...
I mentioned this to Perez early on this morning. I said when we were talking about this when we first opened up, I said I always felt bad because after this happened, we've had him on the air numerous times. I mean, he was a frequent guest on this program, always presenting us. We joke about the pins. He had these little lapel pins. He came in. I think I had a drawer full of these pins. Every time he'd come in, he'd give us a lapel pin.
You got a drawer full of them.
So it was always a twofer. But, I mean, he smoothed a lot of people. After I watched that one, I didn't feel quite as bad to be smoothed by him because he threw a lot of people, he conned a lot of people from government officials to other people in the media, et cetera.
Well, it was like I said in the documentary. I mean, this guy had incredible talent. I mean, he came from nothing. Yeah. He pulled himself up by his bootstraps. He got to the highest point in his profession. In fact, at the time of his indictment, he was holding the position of president of the American Correctional Association while also holding the position of president of the American Association of State Correctional Administrators. He was the only person to ever hold both positions at the same time. I mean, he could have done anything he wanted with the talent that God had given him. Unfortunately, he took the wrong path.
Physically, where is he now?
He's in Texas. He's in a federal prison in Texas.
Is that where he's going to remain for a while?
It's up to the Bureau of Prisons, but right now that's where he is remaining. I don't know what classification the Bureau of Prisons classifies prisoners based upon their criminal history and other factors, but I would imagine he's in what they call a camp, which is a very low-security prison there in Texas.
Before you left your position as a U.S. attorney, were you satisfied that most of the people who were corrupt in here doing business with the state of Mississippi had been dissected from that?
No. No, I was not.
You think some are still involved?
Absolutely.
Well, wait a minute now. You're telling me you think some of the people who were involved in this corruption are still doing business with the state of Mississippi?
When I say involved in this corruption, what I mean is involved in corruption. We had a number of cases that we had indicted, that we had made it in the media, but there are a number of cases still going on out there, Paul. And unfortunately, human beings are sinful. We do bad things, and there are a number of people still doing bad things in the state.
Listen, over the years, I've from Head Start to contracts with the state, over the years, it's got to be one of the most addictive thing that you could possibly get. You get a person who, certainly when they come through the ranks, all of a sudden they have the power of the pen. They're making the decisions. And companies are coming in wanting a bit of that. I mean, you might be making $75,000 a year. But there are people coming in want a part of the millions and millions of dollars. And how they smooth you, ingratiate you in so many different ways, boy, you talking about a slippery slope. And that never goes away, does it, Mike?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
And I don't know how you just have to have a strong will, strong heart to sustain that.
That's right. You have to have the right values and the right, you have to surround yourself with the right people.
It's not only in our state, it's elsewhere. I mean,
Absolutely.
It's just everywhere like that. It could be, I'm sure it's in the private sector too. So more with Mike Hurst, and give you an idea about some of the other things we'll talk about is crime in the Jackson area. I know he wants to mention that one and a couple of other things. We spend a November 21st together, Monday. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Thanksgiving. There are hearing after hearing going on. I don't think Kerry Lake is through yet. I mean, there's some hearings out there, but it was just a cluster truck in Maricopa County. Yeah. Uncalled for. Absolutely uncalled for.
I love the commentators who said, Florida can do this in overnight. But yet we're still having problems in Arizona. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, and don't point to Mississippi with our voter ID and our racism and everything else, because we have more people who are happy, black, white, and brown, about the way we conduct our elections.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, One more thing on American Greed. Anything on there that we need to know that wasn't on there, that was left out, that you can mention?
Thanks for that. Thanks for that caveat there. I would just like to mention some of the individuals. Obviously, Lee County Sheriff Greg Wagner, he kicked this whole thing off. Grady Sims, the mayor of Walnut Grove, was mentioned as having been a warden at the same time he was mayor there in Walnut Grove. And that was actually my case. I was prosecuting that case when John Hunt, the investigator for MDOC, was told to stand down by Chris Epps and not investigate that case anymore. So hats off to John Hunt and Greg Wagner. But also, back to the FBI agents, the IRS was involved, U.S. Postal inspectors. I mean, it was an incredible team effort. Darren Lamarck, as I mentioned, the current U.S. attorney, he was an AUSA with me on that case, as was Scott Gilbert, another AUSA who was helping with the forfeiture. And then, the Louisiana businessmen that were not mentioned in that case, they came in set to bribe Chris Epps. In fact, gave Chris Epps cash, but what they didn't know at the time was Chris Epps was working for us, that he was wired up, that it was all being recorded. And another shout out to Kemper County Sheriff James Moore. Those same four businessmen came to James Moore to bribe him with casino chips. And James Moore came to us, and he also cooperated. So it's an incredibly positive story on the other side, which is good men and women in law enforcement and others who came forward and alerted the public to this.
You almost had to feel for the guy, since we've known him for a long time. When the FBI called him in and apparently showed him that video, if you watched it, they called him in under the pretext of his life was in danger or something. He had somebody was going to put a hit on him or something. And then all of a sudden they showed him the video, and that's when he sunk. Started sweating.
And let me tell you, that was probably the most accurate part of that documentary. That's exactly how that went down. It's exactly how he responded. And what wasn't told in the documentary, Cecil McCrory, the other individual that was indicted with Epps under that 49-count indictment that I wrote, McCrory was brought in under similar circumstances. David Huggins over the state auditor's office helped us bring McCrory into his office under pretenses that McCrory didn't think, and then we did the same thing with Cecil McCrory as well.
If we went back and looked at the long term of corrections commissioners and people in the Senate and House who were on those chairmanships, and I know I've had conversations with and off with Bennett Malone back when Bennett was there, and there were some things going on back even there. Is Teresa Malone still behind bars?
She is. As far as I know, she is. That's correct.
Yeah.
But there were definitely some shady things. I mean, even during Chris Epps' guilty plea, he stated in that guilty plea that he had begun receiving gratuities from Cecil McCrory way back in 1997.
Wow.
When Chris was still just an employee at MDOC and Cecil McCrory was a state legislator. And, so our indictment only covered 7 years, 2007 to 2014, but Epps admitted at his guilty plea that this goes back even, a decade before that.
As far as crime itself, in the city of Jackson, you've been following that situation. I know that's a sore spot for you, but any follow-up thoughts?
No,
it's kind of the water situation's kind of moved crime to page 2.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, Paul, is what it is. I mean, we were doing such good work at the beginning of my tenure as U.S. Attorney, where we actually saw violent crimes beginning to go down in Jackson. But for whatever reason, the mayor of Jackson decided he did not want to cooperate with us anymore. We offered to bring federal law enforcement, FBI, ATF, DEA agents from around the country into Jackson to help with the crime problem in 2020, and he just refused. He just said that he did not want Trump militarizing his city, which is absolutely an insane statement. Yeah. And now you have even councilmen like Kenny Stokes begging for additional federal law enforcement and just local law enforcement to come in because they see that their constituents are hurting. And that's really what's heartbreaking. I as U.S. Attorney and even as a private citizen helping with my wife's ministry in Jackson, I mean, I go into neighborhoods, I go into apartment complexes, I go into grandmothers' homes, and these individuals can't leave. They're forced to stay in Jackson, and they're forced to live in this crime-ridden environment that, for whatever reason, the mayor of Jackson doesn't care about. So it is infuriating when there are resources, when there are things available to make Jackson better. I mean, here you and I are sitting here today. Jackson's at 250 law enforcement officers in JPD. A commission said, 20 years ago that Jackson needs at least 600 law enforcement officers in order to effectively combat and reduce violent crime. 600. So when you're 350 police officers short, why would you not accept additional help from federal law enforcement? Why would you not accept, help from others? I commend the state for setting up the Capitol Police. I commend Bo Luckey for leading it. I commend Tyree Jones, the sheriff of Hines County. He's doing a great job. But until you get someone in that mayor position in Jackson that's a real leader, you're not going to have any change. I hate to say that, but that's just the fact.
I was interested in reading an article over the weekend that we're talking about, we've got, 5 or 6 of the largest cities in America who are run by African-American mayors. And the quote on this was, we'll never get to that racial place we need to be unless we get 5 or 6 states and more states whose governors. And I thought, we look at this terribly wrong, is how are they doing? Regardless if they're black or white, they are Democrat. And we see some Democrat cities, white and black, and what you're basically telling me, we would love to do to America as a whole, and state by state, what we've done to some of these cities.
Yeah.
That's not a very good track record.
I don't see it as a Democratic city issue, because here's the deal. In Kansas City, Missouri, they were having similar issues as we in Jackson, but Kansas City, Missouri was the first city that the Trump administration's DOJ launched Operation Legend, which means we flooded Kansas City, Missouri with 60, 70, 80 federal law enforcement agents, and in the next 3 months, they were effectively reduced violent crime. And that's a Democratic-led city. And the same for Birmingham. They allowed federal law enforcement came in. Same for Memphis. I mean, it's not Democratic-led cities, in my opinion. It's this mayor in the city of Jackson who refuses any help, who, for whatever reason, wants to do everything on his own, whether it's crime, whether it's water, whatever it is, and he is a failed leader, and he's failing Jackson.
I think you and I both know in 15 minutes they could call a press conference in Washington and transfer $15 billion or whatever it happens to be, instead of giving it to Ukraine or somebody else or some of the waste, we probably could double the amount of police officers in every major American city.
Absolutely.
Certainly the ones with out of control crime.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that.
Mike's always good, sir.
Yeah,
appreciate it
thanks,
very much.
Paul. Appreciate you.
Good to have you, and happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, sir.
You too. Happy